Peace, family. This is Lions Den with another news and commentary. This is another video. This is from Roland Martin Unfiltered. It shows the voter suppression going on in Georgia. Well, a 92-year-old black woman was refused to even vote, and she's been there since 1968. I felt that goes to show that, this election was really crazy, ridiculous. If people has a right to vote, and we have a right, basically we have a right to vote anyway. But to sit here and to see stuff like this happening to polling places is unacceptable. It's not just her. It's parts of places places across this country. Now, I'm just being honest, ladies and gentlemen, that, you got three governor candidates, black governor candidates, Maryland, Georgia, and Florida. And I believe all three of them lost yesterday because they felt that, they do not want a black governor in their state. This is kind of crazy and ridiculous. And, this Roland Martin Unfiltered is a 5-hour show. So I'm not going to do my commentary today, but I will show you the tactics of what they would do to win elections. And they don't even have electricity cables. Can you believe that? On one polling place in Georgia, they do not have electricity cables to fix the voting machines. And this is a part of a tactic from the other side. And by the way, you got a candidate who's running for governor of Georgia, and he's Secretary of State of Georgia. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the Roland Martin Unfiltered, but I'm not gonna spend the entire 5 hours. But what I will do is I'm going to do only almost an hour, maybe an hour and a half of this situation, just to show everybody what is going on. States like Georgia and all across the country of voter suppression, which is ridiculous and unacceptable. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video. And then after the commentary from the panel on the Roland Martin show, and then, I'm going to let you guys... let me know what you guys think about this video and share it, because this is most important of what's going on in the state of Georgia. So here it is.
Where are you guys FaceTiming from? Awesome. Well, you guys are sounding good. Have a great show.
It is election night 2018. Black Votes Matter. Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're going to have the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. We've got our analysts lined up. We got 4 on the set right now. Trust me, I got about 30 more waiting to come on as well. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from Black Voters Matter, hearing from Be Woke as well, hearing from Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., from Rashad Robinson, also Mark Morial, Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, Christian Clark, you name it, we're going to have them on the show right here, breaking down this election, following what's happening in Georgia. Will Stacey Abrams win to become the first black female governor in American history? Andrew Gillum, will he win in Florida? Ben Jealous, could he win in Maryland? You also have African Americans who are running for attorney generals all across the country as well, plus the Congressional Black Caucus. Kabir will have 56 members by the end of tonight. What is going on? And of course, you also have black Republicans who are running. Will this be the night where America sends a message to Donald Trump that they're sick and tired of his shenanigans? That could be the case. Democrats, will they take over the House? Can Republicans hold on to the United States Senate? Formerly incarcerated folks, will they get the right to vote in Florida? What about marijuana? That's on the initiative as well. Plus, those egregious constitutional amendments in North Carolina, will they put voter suppression in the state constitution? Folks, we're going to have a packed 5 hours. Yes, the next 5 hours, we're going to be here breaking down this election for you in a way nobody else will do. And guess what? Your black networks out there, you know what they're showing? Movies and reality shows. Not here. That's why Roland Martin Unfiltered matters, and that's why we're here for you tonight. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the piss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Welcome to all of our folks in America and across the world who are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That's right, we've got fans, of course, in Africa, in Europe, in Canada, and the West Indies, in the Caribbean, watching the show as well. We're going to be breaking down election year 2018, the midterm elections, right here in a way nobody else is going to, of course, because we understand how important this race is. All today across the country, folks have been going to the polls. Some not being able to actually vote. And so we don't know exactly what's happening there, especially in Georgia, but we're going to be breaking that thing down. And so, look, we got a great show lined up for you folks, all kinds of individuals who are ready to talk about what's happening in this election. But again, let's set the table. What we have tonight, huge implications. Will Democrats take control of the U.S. House? Will Republicans can keep control of the United States Senate? That's the major things that folks are watching. What you also then have, you have your gubernatorial races. Republicans have 33 governor's mansions. They're one away from the record. But tonight, Democrats could very well pick up anywhere from 8 to 10 gubernatorial victories tonight, including 3 African Americans who are running in Maryland, who are running in Florida, as well as in Georgia. But beyond those races, we also watching a number of other races out there, key congressional races. Lucy McBath, the mother of Jordan Davis, of course, who was shot and killed there in Florida by supposedly with his music being too loud. She is actually running against Karen Handel in Georgia. You also have Ayanna Pressley. She could become the first person of color to represent Massachusetts in the United States Congress. Also, you have Jahana Hayes, who is running in Connecticut as well. And Stephen Horsford in Nevada, former congressman who lost his seat trying to reclaim it out west. And so we're watching all of those races in addition to statewide races where African Americans are running. You got African Americans who are running on the Republican and the Democratic side for Attorney General in New York, as well as in Illinois. You got an African American who is running for Attorney General in Florida, in Nevada, in Minnesota, and several different places. And so we're watching all of those races, giving you the updates, but also breaking down the analysis in terms of what this means, not only for people of color, for African Americans, but also for the country. Now, of course, we've been focused this entire season on voter suppression. And what we have seen today has been an absolute abomination all across this country. We've heard reports in Texas of people showing up and then machines not working and hundreds of people actually leaving. We've seen the exact same thing in Georgia, where at one point saw a video today where people were lined up and they forgot the power cables to the election machines. Here's a video that Scott Dworkin also posted on social media earlier today.
Election day started an hour ago in my neighborhood, and we don't have cords to plug in the voting machines. We all knew that voting was today, and only in my neighborhood, people are waiting an hour after the polls open to vote. And they're saying that we don't have power cords. Opportunistic. Everyone in the world knew we were going to vote today. And in my neighborhood, there are no power cords. The building is full of power. No power cords. All these dedicated people waiting to vote. This is what we call voter suppression. This is what we go through to vote. In case anyone was wondering. As you will see, no one in the voting precinct voted. No one is voting. Precinct is empty. Check your setup.
Now, folks, let me tell you something. My parents have worked polls for a number of years. In fact, they are working the polls as we speak in Dallas County. I can guarantee you the folks who run the polls do a check 48 hours before an election where they go over ballots, they go over the voting machines, they go over all of those things you needed to open the polls on time at 7 a.m. This makes no sense whatsoever. That is not the only issue that we have seen in Georgia. We've seen the exact same thing all across that state. And in fact, there was one polling location where they had 3 booths. Line was out the door. They had 3 booths. Also, we've had folks who've been posting tweets as well where they took 4.5 hours just to vote in Georgia because of the problems. This is, again, fundamental. Now, the folks at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, they have been monitoring this. They also want folks to call 1-866-OUR-VOTE if you have any issues out there as well. We've seen folks turn away, suggesting they didn't have a voter ID. And in fact, Brittany Noble is a journalist. She said her grandmother, said she needed 2 forms of ID to vote in Illinois. They turned her away, and we're going to get her on the phone, talk to her as well to find out what's going on there. Say it again. All right, so not only that, let me tell you how bad this is in terms of what's been going on. Greg Palast, we've seen him on our show several different times where he's been outlining the purging of folks from the rolls. This 92-year-old black woman went to vote today, and this woman has not moved, y'all. This black woman has not moved, but her name was purged from the rolls in Georgia. This video was posted.
Has this ever happened to you before?
Never.
How long you been voting?
All my life, ever since I was old enough. But I've been voting right here ever since 1968.
And it's horrible. And I say that because the West End, she's been in this community back when when they were doing sit-ins. She held civil rights meetings in her home. And today to come out and not be able to vote and no one can give you an explanation, like, it's extremely emotional and it bothers me. It bothers me to my core. Like, there's actually no record of her whatsoever voting in any election whatsoever, and it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Well, as you introduce our panel right now, we have Greg Carr, of course, Chair, Afro-American Studies Department, Howard University. We, of course, Spencer Overton. He is Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. We also have, of course, Chris Metzler as well, our conservative analyst. And, of course, we have, of course, leadership strategist Avis Jones DeWeaver, how exceptional black women lead. Avis, I'll start with you. When you see that video, again, this whole thing about vote purging is if you miss an election or if you move. That black woman has not missed elections.
She has not. She has not. She's fought for this day. And as I sat here and watched that, I was absolutely, and still am, livid. Absolutely livid. This is what happens when you have the fox guarding the hen house. This was not something that was accidental. This was not an oversight. This is blatant voter suppression. This is blatant Jim Crow tactics. This is about stealing an election, and I hope to God he doesn't get away with it.
And Chris, at the end of the day, how do you not know this day is coming? That's first. I mean, so no power cables, running out of ballots, 3 voting booths. I mean, I voted a long time. I can't tell you the last time I went to a popular place and there were 3 voting booths.
Yeah, so here's the problem. The problem is you have the Secretary of State who is responsible for the execution of elections, who now wants to be the governor. Look, I'm sorry, but if you cannot make sure that you have power cords, how can we expect you to run a state? And I am as conservative as they come, but this issue for me is problematic because you want to run the state of Georgia. You understand what's going on and you have no power cords? It's just one of those things.
Hold tight 1 second. I'm going to get to Spencer and Greg in just 1 moment, but I want to go right now to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, their war room. They've been monitoring these things for the past several weeks, but especially what's been happening today. So joining us right now is Kristen Clark. Of course, she leads the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Kristen, welcome to our Black Votes Matter 2018 election coverage.
Oh, live.
Kristen, can you hear me?
No, I'm just going to be live.
Can you hear him? He's talking to you now.
Hi, how are you?
Christian, all right, glad to have you here. So first off, we just played that video of a 92-year-old black woman in Georgia who's been living in the same place and voting in the same place since 1968. Her name was purged from the rolls. Y'all have been getting phone calls. Give us a sense of the volume of calls that y'all have been receiving there at 1-866 Our Vote.
Yeah, as about 5 p.m. today, Roland, we received about 25,000 calls from voters. And these are not one-off complaints. A lot of the complaints that we heard about today were reflecting issues and problems impacting entire communities. You know, I'm talking about polling sites that opened up several hours late, polling sites with lines that were several hours long because machines were malfunctioning. We found ourselves in a position of having to go to court to try and secure secure an extension of polling hours, and we've done that with some success in a few places, including most recently in Fulton County, where polling hours have been extended for Pittman Park until 9 p.m. tonight, and at 2 polling sites on Morehouse's campus, which are now open until 10 p.m. But our office has just been a buzz all day since 6 o'clock this morning, and we're going all night. Our job is to stay here until the polls close and to make sure every voter gets heard today. You can call 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE, or text OUR VOTE to the number 97779, and you will get help. The one thing that I would caution as we move into the latter part of Election Day is if you're standing in line, it doesn't matter how long that line is or what poll workers tell you. If you're in line, when the polls close, you have the right to stay in that line until you get to cast your ballot. So we encourage people to hold the line and make sure their voice is heard tonight.
Kristen, you talk about, of course, those 25,000 phone calls. We also have seen examples of what has been happening in Texas. We've seen other examples. I've seen various tweets where people have been turned away at the polls saying that you can't even do a provisional ballot. And the kinds of things that have been thrown out there. It's amazing, and just the different information from one polling booth to the other polling location. I mean, it's just crazy. And what this speaks to is the problem that we have in this country, which people don't realize. We don't have national elections. Right. States run elections, and then you have these different counties who have their own rules. And so there was one black woman, in fact, there was a video, and we want to show a little bit later, where there's one white woman started yelling at this black woman because she was confused because she was registered to vote in Williamson County, outside of Austin, but she lived in Travis County. And so all the woman had to tell her was, you vote where you live. She yelled at her and cursed her out and threatened to call the cops on this black woman. She was fired from her job as a polling supervisor. That's the madness that we're seeing, and it's not like we didn't know November 6th was Election Day.
Exactly. I mean, we have so much work to do to improve the way that we run and operate elections in our country, which is why it gets me so frustrated when I hear people talking and pushing voter suppression and talking about vote fraud, which doesn't exist. We have 50 states and it's like the Wild Wild West, just as you said, 50 states that are all buying their own voting equipment and coming up with their own rules and coming up with their own training requirements. And as a result, it is just a patchwork of chaos around the country. That said, we're here to fight. We're here to help people overcome the obstacles. And tomorrow, we'll catch our breath and start to turn to the important work that we need to do to get ready for future local elections and, most importantly, for 2020.
And again, last question for you. You said, of course, your lawyers are ready. I take it you have lawyers who have been volunteering in every locale. So you have people who are on the ground in those places, not just based here in D.C., correct?
That's right. And it's not just the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law that's been leading this operation. We've got about 100 local and state partners that are right now boots on the ground. We've got 100 law firms that have opened up their doors and are hosting call centers. So it really is an army of an operation. And we've been pushing back against election officials, standing up for voters, going to court if and when we need to. Our job here today is to make sure that every voice is heard, and we're going to keep doing it tomorrow too.
All right, Kristen Clark, with Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, there from the War Room there. Again, the number is 1-866-OUR-VOTE, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Y'all have been doing an amazing job this whole election season, and thank goodness to have civil rights attorneys who are there fighting for our right to vote. Kristen, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Well, right now I want to go to Spencer. Spencer, again, what we're seeing is flat out an abomination. And this is just not affecting black folks. Right. This is affecting every single voter out there. There were issues in New York State, which is an overwhelmingly Democratic state, and they have fundamental issues there. There's a problem in this nation when it comes to how we deal with voting. And, of course, you authored a book on the whole issue of voter suppression and voting rights.
Right. That's right. So we've got over 3,000 different counties. So basically, your right to vote depends on where you live, because we've got 3,000 different sets of voting rules here. In a place like Georgia, right, talk about this fox guarding the henhouse. Brian Kemp, Secretary of State, administering election, but he's also running for governor, right? So we saw the exact match piece, which was basically rejected by courts. The attempt to hold up voter registrations. Now is, hey, the Democratic Party is hacking the election system. Really just this incentive to just to cloud the issues here. Take it away from the policy issues, right? And get into this suppression piece. This notion of history, Roland, folks didn't just suppress black voters in the past because they were just racist. They did it to win elections.
Right.
And the same thing we see happening today.
Greg Carr, again, it is stunning to see these videos folks are posting. And you see these massive long lines. Anybody with a brain who paid attention could see what was going on. Georgia, 940,000 people voted early in Georgia in 2014. This year, 2.1 million. In Harris County, where Houston is located, 900,000 plus people voted in the entire 2014 midterms, period. That includes election day. This year, early voting alone exceeded 1 million. If you're running a polling station, the first thing you say is, hey y'all, we're gonna need more stuff than we normally use because these numbers are big.
Yeah.
And in Cobb County in Georgia, they're in Texas, in other places, they're going, oh my God, we're being overwhelmed. What the hell do you think? If you were paying attention?
Well, brother, the beautiful thing about this show and this coverage is that we don't deal in illusions.
Right.
The aspiration is that America do that. But we know the reality, as we've heard, and I agree with you, Avis. Brian Kemp, this is all deliberate. Brian Kemp is in the proud tradition of the Talmadge father and son governors of Georgia, Lester Maddox. He is a proud white supremacist. He is, in fact, the Chris Kobach of Georgia. They are going to try to steal this election.
Yeah.
Because they're not just worried about a blue wave. They're worried about a black, brown, and yellow wave, brother. Harper's Magazine just published an article where the guy argues that by 2040, 70% of the people who live in this country are going to live in 15 states. They are fighting for their way of life, and they're not going to back up. Now, what are we doing in response? We just saw, Kristen, this thing is not going to be over tonight. There's going to be a lot of litigation. I mean, these lawyers are out here seriously. Look at North Dakota. They're turning away Native Americans for having avenue on their ID instead of street. But the beautiful thing is, our blood-kin Native American brothers and sisters are set up making IDs on site.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what's happening. And so, folks, so here's what's going on here. All night, we're going to, of course, be breaking down election results. Results right now are in early. When the Associated Press, when they start calling these races, we'll give it to you as well. But also, the reason you can easily watch the other cable networks or broadcast networks to get those results. Why are we doing this? Because our voices also matter. Turn on those networks. You might see one black person.
Right.
The whole hour.
Right.
11 o'clock.
It's 5 black people right now. Yeah, you're gonna see about 5 black people on some of those networks by midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. The reason we're doing this is because, again, we want to get the analysis, but also talk to people who the cable networks and the broadcast networks will not call. Like my next guest, she's one of the co-founders of Black Voters Matter, Latasha Brown. She's there in Georgia. She is there with Cliff. They have filed a lawsuit against Brian Kemp. They gave us that exclusive about an hour ago. Latasha and Cliff, give us the details of the lawsuit you filed literally a couple of hours ago against Brian Kemp.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the lawsuit. About a couple of hours ago, we filed a lawsuit. Some individuals at individual recruiter. We filed a lawsuit against Brian Kemp because it is a due process issue. He can't in the Constitution makes a provision, you can't be the judge and the jury. So what has happened in this election cycle is the same election cycle that he's actually counted and presided over. He's actually the subject of, and he's at the top of the ticket. So we're asking the court to intervene and do an injunction so that he steps aside and he no longer is presiding over the election process. But beyond that, the reason why that's the case is because we've been all around the state today, and we've heard all kinds of stories that Cliff can share about from voters and our groups that we're working with about some of the things that are happening in Georgia.
Cliff, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard, starting with early in the day, we heard about polling places where usually there's 30 machines, but this time around there were only 15 machines. We've heard about polling places even right now, at the other end of the time. We're right now at a place where we heard that they were trying to close the doors early and not letting some people who are online be able to go in and vote. And then we've heard all kinds of things in between. But the important thing to remember is everything that we've seen today is just a continuation of the suppression that we've seen coming out of Kemp's office ever since he's been in that position. Over the past 6-7 years, they've purged 1.5 million voters. Right now, they're holding on to 53,000 voter registration forms, 70% of which are black voters. And so we've seen over years, we've seen the closing of polling places. And so everything we've seen today is just a continuation of suppression that we've been seeing for years. And all of that comes during the time where we got to remember that the Voting Rights Act was gutted by the Supreme Court.
Well, and that is critically important, Latasha and Cliff, because that is what gave DOJ the right to look over these states' shoulders, and these states were very afraid to make these type of moves. Right. The moment Shelby v. Holder was decided 5-4 in the favor of gutting Section 4, every single state that Republicans were in control of, they rushed to implement many of these voter suppression laws. They rushed to implement voter ID, the purging of rolls, and that actually happened after a white man in Ohio sued the state for being purged. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was Neil Gorsuch, of course, who was placed on the Supreme Court when they held up the position under President Barack Obama to allow Antonin Scalia. Well, actually, after he died, they held it up. That was a 5-4 decision where they allowed Ohio to purge the rolls. And right now, there's some 30 states. They have bills, laws pending where they want to be able to do the exact same thing to begin to purge the rolls. Latasha, we showed a video earlier of a 92-year-old black woman who had been voting in the same place since 1968. Her granddaughter was in tears because her name was not on the rolls. Her name had been purged.
That's right. That's right. We're all kinds of stories. We had a story of a woman who actually voted in the primary, and then she showed up to the polls today, and it said that her name was dropped. So how was she dropped from the primary to the general election? We've seen all kinds of inconsistencies throughout voting. We've seen polling places. We got a call from a polling place that actually voted at 12 o'clock that said at 7 o'clock the machines went down and no one had voted between the hours of 7 and 12. So there are all kinds of shenanigans that are going on. That's why we think that it's really important that we educate ourselves, that we come out in record numbers, but we recognize that the fight doesn't end today. This is just one portion, but we've got to fight to make sure that the Voting Rights Act is restored, but we also got to reimagine and think, what is it that we need so that we don't keep going through this cycle that is permanent, that protects the interests and the rights of voters to have free and fair access to the ballot. We are not going back, and we're not going to continue to fight for something that we got 25 years ago or 50 years ago. It's time for us to have a new paradigm. It is a new America. This is a new day. We're going to make sure that we have the things in place that we need to make sure that as citizens, our voices are heard.
All right, then, Latasha Brown, Cliff Albright, co-founders of Black Voters Matter. We certainly appreciate you joining us on Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest election night show out here. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Roland. We appreciate you, brother.
All right, thanks a lot. I want to go to our panel here. And again, folks, do me a favor. If y'all can get Alicia Reese, Ohio State Rep, on the phone, because I want to talk about her Ohio Bill of Rights, where she wants to be able to put that in the state constitution. So if y'all can get her on the phone, that'll be great. Go to our panel here. Again, what they talked about, and this is the reason why I want to talk to Alicia, because at the end of the day, the only way you change this is if you put the fundamental right to vote in these constitutions,
yes,
because that's what's going to stop this nonsense from happening.
Absolutely. That's the ultimate remedy. The challenge is, has been alluded to, Dr. Carr was exactly right. The other side, they see that the demographics are changing. The nation is changing. We only have about another generation. In fact, today, the majority of babies born in America are babies of color. Today. That's right. And so the clock is ticking in terms of a white majority in this nation. And if you are unwilling then to compete in a fair way to sit here and lay out your policies to try to earn people's vote. And if you are unwilling to do that, which obviously many people are, the thing that you do then is you steal the vote. You only allow those people who are like you to vote. And that's what we're seeing right now. And so hopefully that Ohio effort is successful. It's that sort of thing that we'll need to have happen, piecemeal by piecemeal, all across the country.
Chris, the issue for me, flat out, is very simple. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. You should have the fundamental right to vote. You should not be blocking folks because they're veterans. You should not be blocking people because they are young, because they're old. There should be automatic voter registration. You should not have a situation where folks are being purged from voter rolls. It should be automatic, period.
Yeah, well, I agree with you in that. I think it should be a fundamental right. But from many of my Republican colleagues' standpoint, in fact, there is nothing wrong with the system. From a number of their perspectives, the issue is, in fact, there is access to the ballot. All you have to do is show your ID, and all you have to do is make sure that you're not committing voter fraud. I mean, so from that perspective, I agree with you completely that, in fact, there should be a fundamental right to vote. But looking at it from the Republican perspective, in many cases, that fundamental right exists.
But the Republican perspective is one that talks about limited government. It talks about liberty in government not getting in the way of exercising liberty. The right to vote is one of the most fundamental rights in terms of liberty. Why do conservatives use the state, the power of government, to suppress the liberty of citizens?
Well, so, and that's a fair question, but from the standpoint of Republicans and conservatives, I view true conservatives and Republicans as very different. So from a conservative perspective, you're absolutely correct. It is the issue of limited government. From a Republican standpoint, though, that is not the view that many of my, not all, but many of my colleagues have, is that, hey, you know, this is, the right exists, all you have to do is, in fact...
And the reason why is because they're not consistent. Yeah. I mean, it's hypocritical. It's not consistent. If they really believed in limited government, they wouldn't want to have the government in my uterus, for example.
How about that?
But they want it there, too. Okay?
How about that?
So it's not consistent. It's about twisting your ideology to move forward in terms of your political goals.
That's right.
And the political goal here is to maintain and take power by any means necessary, right, even if that means trampling over your rights.
No, that's right. And then there's a little matter of the 10th Amendment. All powers that are not enumerated by the federal government are reserved to the states.
Correct.
What we're about to see is probably an inversion in this country. Stacey, Abrams in Georgia, Andrew Gillum in Florida, who will get 3 Supreme Court picks to the Florida Supreme Court when he's elected. The laboratories of democracies of the states, it's going to be very interesting to watch progressives, black and brown people and white folks who ain't lost their minds, begin to argue for states' rights. Because, Dr. Jones-Weaver is right. You got 3 states in this country, Oregon, Alabama, and West Virginia, who have anti-abortion measures on the ballot tonight.
Yes.
And by the way, it looks like they've called the Virginia 10th, I think. So it looks like maybe one of the first blue is coming in.
Yeah, we're going to be giving some of those election results in just a second. I want to go right now, though, to FaceTime, where Ohio State Rep. Alicia Reese